Hello, my soul family. Today I'm going to talk about the Kundalini journey for me. Looking back, it's been 4.5 years, which is so crazy to me, and I've learned so much in hindsight. I bet in 10 years I'll look back at this and go, oh honey, oh girl. But I feel like with this amount of years under my belt, I can finally sit down here with a cup of tea and reassess and look at what each year has been, what each theme has been. One reason that's inspired me for this is really the quarantine and going inward and having this notion that like that's what the Kundalini did initially. So when my Kundalini awoke, and many of you know this story, so forgive me if I've told it 1,000 times, but I had an opening that was very beautiful and unsettling. No part of that initial opening for me was pleasant. I really felt like while there was a lot of excitement and spiritual realms and colors and again, this notion that like, oh my God, it's almost like Matilda in the movie when she finds out she has powers, but she's still in a really shitty life. It's like, I was still in a really shitty life with like all of the shit, like from my whole life of like what I didn't know that I didn't know, totally subconscious. But I had access to this new thing and the hope in my body was insane, but no part of it felt grounded. And 4.5 years later, you realize it's all about the groundedness. Like, I don't want a download, a lesson, an opening without it being grounded. I really don't. I have been put through the ringer. I know what that high vibrational energy feels like. And I know now from having balanced hormones and just like a regulated, somewhat regulated body, I can say, I don't want that. It feels so, I also just turned 30. I feel good about that. I felt 30 and talking about the Kundalini process, I've felt like it had robbed me of my youth since it came to me when I was 25 and I never had a normal life again. So I feel like I've been 30, 40, 50 for years. I really didn't live out the last 5 years of my 20s, nor do I care much anymore. I feel like I've grieved that substantially. But yeah, it's time. I'm 30. It's time. So the lucky thing, and I've gotten lots of emails from you about like what have been the medical and physical symptoms, because so many people like go to hospital and they're terrified, and I did that. I had the MRIs, I had the whole thing in both Ireland and in America. I did that whole route, and of course it didn't produce anything, but it's absolutely essential for you to do because a lot of these symptoms can mimic MS, can mimic neurological disorders, and it's just a must, and it'll give you peace of mind. But I wrote all this down. I wrote it down at least the first year. So my luck is that I have a sheet of paper to report back to you what shifted in the first year. And the first year for me, the theme is spiritual opening, quarantine and breakdown, which is what happened very quickly after the opening, and the eye of the storm. So there was no reflection or enough space to look back at that year and within that whole year. Like it was just, you're in the waves, you're in the ocean, and I was just coming up to air and then wrestling again with the shitstorm of what a Kundalini opening can look like. Some of my symptoms, and I'm just going to read them out. Severe tingling up and down my spine. Of course, that's the biggest symptom. The up and down the spine thing can be one of those criterias that people need for the Kundalini awakening, but I've noticed that over the years that energy has moved into minor chakras all over every part of the body until it ends up just kind of being absorbed by the cells themselves. It goes back and forth between minor, major, and it loops, and it doesn't have any real sense of direction sometimes. And it's not this like, oh, you complete one cycle and you're done. It's not organized. It's very, very ethereal. It doesn't follow the rules of gravity, so to speak. It just does its own thing. It was worse at nighttime, obviously, because that's the time when we rest and really are present. was in my stomach, heart, chest cavity. The heart openings were super intense, tingling, itching, crawling in hands, first in my left and then in my right, severe heat in my hands. I stopped wanting to speak and I spent most of my days in silence. Very creative that time. I began writing furiously, and I have not been able to write since properly. Even my blog, I'm just so like, ugh. Once I get going, it's great, but this was like a real desire. I would wake up, would drink coffee, sit at the coffee shop, and I was like, I'm a writer. Treated socially, solitude. I couldn't be around people for long periods of time. Began my obsessive interest in spirituality, like I had to catch up. Dropped all other interests. I couldn't see a meaning in anything materialistic and in anything at all. Loss of focus. I couldn't finish movies. I couldn't read books very well. I began waking up with insights and guidance and what next book to read. Began my interest in self-development and self-improvement, in love, in God. Spaced out most of the day with mental fog. Old memories or feelings coming to light. Boy, like 4 years later, I realized that's the thing that's never stopped. If anything, the emotional debris process, that has been the longest and most persistent symptom, and I don't think it's going away anytime soon because I'm discovering more and more about Laura's history, Laura's past, Laura's inner children. That's going to take me a long time, and I'm here for it. Emotional roller coaster, everything from anger, gratitude, sadness, and 30-minute turnovers, fatigue and depression, heart palpitations without anxiety, strong tightness in chest. I started getting a strong desire to speak the truth, super heightened sensitivity to everything, sound and touch. Lost the ability to drink alcohol. I stopped smoking. I stopped my medication. No interest in friends. I let all of my friendships go. Mind you, they were all in Ireland, so they were slipping away anyway. But it was sad because now I don't have good relationships with any of those people that I spent all my youth with. Extreme body restlessness, especially at night. Very uncomfortable in my body 24/7. My period, I forgot about that. My period stopped for months. And then I started birth control, which, by the way, me starting birth control in the first year of my Kundalini awakening did not help. It totally intensified it in a really bad way. I was overwhelmed very easily by people talking. I couldn't deal with it. I had an increased desire in food. I was craving creamy, cheesy, buttery things and protein. I gained a lot of weight and I was really eating my feelings initially. I lost interest in technology. I wanted to be off of Facebook. Inability to entertain or fake any emotions. Feeling like I am swimming in a multitude of energies, and it was dense and I was in the middle. Scared of losing myself if I let go. Ringing in my ears. Tingling then spread to like my whole body. Shortness of breath. I could barely walk anywhere. I was bedbound. I would walk and then I would be out of breath and it was like and there were times like in the bed I would try and pick up a glass and a mug and I couldn't. Nausea. I started getting lumps and bumps like in my skull and the back of my neck. Just lumps would appear and I would press on them and just like all of this energy would start sputtering out. Dizziness, sensitive to textures, higher intuition, headaches, head pressure. I mean, this list is long. Every symptom you could think of that you can imagine has to do with a sense of electricity, I had. That first video that I ever recorded, I went through that year basically and all about just de-evolution. I thought I was getting more spiritual and just like the nastiest stuff was coming out of me and I got in a really dark place. The second year, my theme would be called Roughly Ready, like barely ready, just spit out from the ocean and those waves. I was just like on sand, if you can imagine, drenched in water, catching my breath and starting to go, what the fuck was that? That was year 2 for me. I was trying to wrap up everything in a premature way. That's why I call it roughly ready. I was coming to terms with everything and I was very lost. So this is when, okay, that happened. And now what? Like, I was still experiencing all the symptoms. I've explained many in videos of just moments where like emotion would hit me and I would be like, and I would like have to run home and I would have these releases. I had one time had a 3-hour birth session, my legs wide open and I was screaming. And I knew this was the process and it all felt like, yeah, that makes sense. But there was always judgment and just feeling lost. Like I needed a sense of pattern, but there was none. I would have a release 1 month and then 6 months later or every day for a week. And it was just like, I still haven't had structure in that way because it comes when it comes. I didn't have any money. It was difficult. It was very difficult to feel like you were on the shore, so you should have some footing, but I didn't. And I still had all the symptoms. And so that year I really felt truly that I should have been further along than I was. I can remember that deeply, just like, you know, I'm on the shore. I should be back to my life. I should be doing all these things. And it's like, oh no, honey, you got spit out onto the shore, but you're a baby now. I thought I was going to fall out being like my regular, 26-year-old body and self. And no, I had to relearn how to walk. I had to relearn how to speak. And almost like someone having a stroke, it's like you need to just take that time and you need to take those little baby steps to relearn. Year 3 was when I started to feel less lost. This was the theme of coming back down to earth. This is when I moved to Asheville. I followed that guidance. My symptoms stopped entirely. My tingling over the last few years is very like a warm liquid, or I still have it all the time, but it's not, oh my God, I'm not being tasered. And it stopped then, which was very interesting. And I got into a relationship a few months later. I started to grow roots. We moved in together. I was like feeling out this new place. I kind of took a step back from spirituality in the sense of I got a job. I was like, I need to go back into life. Can I be social again? And I started at the vet and I was like, oh my God, I can. But then my body, like a year later, was like breaking down from the stress because that wasn't the right environment. But I needed to prove to myself that I could be a human again, that I could live a human life, that I could buy clothes, that I could put on makeup, that I could go out and work and, say, hi, how are you doing? What do you need today? Those were huge like rites of passage for me because I had felt like I was lost at sea for 25 years. Even though this was not that long, like this span of time, it felt like forever. So for me to come back into the world was a very big moment. And I was wondering why that spiritual opening was not the same, but it felt right. It felt like my spiritual North Star was like, no, moving into the body is what you have to do. It is the hero's journey when you return to the village. And that's what I did. And I met girls at the vet and I went out and I just was like living a little bit of a normal life. Year 4 for me was the year of like the healer, where my inner healer really leveled up. I leveled up in terms of knowledge, in terms of, oh, finally coming full circle. I'm finally integrating the last few years. It's finally coming together. Truly, it's like I could put a stamp on at least the initial Kundalini awakening. That's what started to finally integrate. 4 years later, it's when I began the trauma work. The last years all were releases, coming up releases. And I knew that it was emotional work. I knew all about that. But the real, like, taking responsibility for your trauma and learning about trauma and how the body holds it, the nervous system, group therapy, single therapy was life-changing. Really taking ownership, because the Kundalini can do so much, but you need to use the resources in this world to help the Kundalini process, because it can't just do all of it on its own. It can technically filter through your chakras and move all of this stuff, but do you want it like to be 30 years where you're not really understanding what's coming up? Like, I urge you to always seek a guide in this. And this was the year. This was the year for me to seek help and to level up. My healing work became amazing and intense, and I started to finally feel like I knew what I was doing. My Kundalini was pushing me like, you need to learn about trauma. You need to figure out all of the ways this materializes. I've been studying this stuff for 4 years now, so I got a university degree by myself. I want to keep learning. I want to get my metaphorical master's. I want to keep learning and diving into that so that I can really have all of the tools. Like, I'm building this toolkit that helps me. Of course, there's this mutual aid, but it's also like, because I know that the Kundalini from day one has pushed me to work with other people. I have said this, I think, before, but I had this epiphany last year where I was like, oh my God, my symptoms went away, a lot of them, when I started doing sessions. And the awakening, yeah, it was personal. And of course, this is totally cleaning me out. Like, I'm a different person, and not at all different, if you catch my drift. But this opening was not just for me. This opening was for everyone else. So it would make sense that the Kundalini is guiding me towards gathering those tools so that I can be of service. And this year, I feel like I really got those tools. Now I'm in the 0.5, so the last half of the year of my Kundalini journey, and it is shifting once again. I don't have the hindsight, so I can't report back to you what this is. I know this has been a lot of self-empowerment, a lot of healing my mother wound, healing, the parental stuff. But the energy has moved down. And because all of this was open, and because my heart has always felt strong and here, like, I never felt like the Kundalini wasn't present in my heart. But my solar plexus, my sacral, and my root are still, and will be for years, and I know this, are so, have so much energy in them. And it is so hard for me to discharge. I could cry out of the frustration. Whenever I get my butt, which is like the tailbone, and like the root worked, like in sessions, it is agonizing, because there are so many physical jerks and movements, and I cannot complete it. I cannot release it. And a lot of my parental stuff is in my sacral, is in my genitals, is in like all of this, pocket down here. And I think I'm at the very tip of the iceberg. I have began for the first time to really feel safe in my body. So we're coming to a real feeling of safety, which is a root chakra theme. Never felt safe in my life. And so I believe that a lot of this year will be working with the lower chakras. And I say that with like a pinch of salt, because it's all the chakras all the time. But working with those central themes of being a human, being safe in this world, feeling loved, and as opposed to unlovable, and worthy as opposed to worthless, and inner critic, really starting to get to know it and love it and become aware of it. Those are the themes. God, I'm going to miss so many things, and then I'm going to watch this back and I'm going to be pissed. But that's what's here right now. In terms of physical symptoms, I also feel the healthiest I've ever been. Not like diet and exercise, that's not great. I mean the healthiest, like in the last, since the Kundalini started, my body has felt the best it ever has within that, which just goes to show how much integration has been taking place, that my body is really starting to reorient itself into this environment and plant its feet firmly into the ground so that I can start opening the crown and just filter through. One other piece that I keep getting in sessions is that my body is like showing me that it's like this grid, this like map, and I have to press the right buttons to unlock it. And I don't know where that's going to take me, but there does feel like, I feel like I'm starting to look inward again for the first time, almost like I've never done it in this way before, and starting to look at my body almost like it is a puzzle and trying to piece together the pieces. What stretch, what movement, what mixture of points unlocks. And I don't know where that's going to take me, but there's something here that maybe in a few years I'll look back and go, oh my God, I found something. But it does feel like my body, it keeps showing me like going tick, 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 like a key code. So all of that and more. Yeah, it's been a trip, guys. Thank you so much for being here with me, because I started out with a camera and I was like, I didn't know what the hell I was doing, and I didn't know what was going on with me really. And through building this like online presence and building myself, like the fact that it's just all gone simultaneously together is a huge, and it's become like the biggest piece of my life. It just brings a lot of gratitude, and I really enjoyed this reflection. I look forward to more. I haven't done them, like I used to do them like every other month, because I need more time now. The symptoms aren't moving as quickly and the themes aren't moving as quickly for me to update you that quickly. But in hindsight, it really all starts forming a picture. Invitation is always just to look at your journey. If you wish, use the comments down below as a personal journal. Like, feel free to kind of work your way through your story, because your story matters. It really does, and I want to hear it. Thank you guys so much, and have a beautiful day.